welcome to the 20th letter in the series of Copperplate Majuscules. This is for the letter T. I can't believe I'm on the 20th one already. It's gone really quickly. I can't believe we've only got 6 letters left. And I can't believe of those 6, I've got still an X and a Z to do, which is some of my least favourites, but never mind. Today I have a Nico G nib in an oblique holder with some acrylic ink in. Acrylic ink I've spoken about before, but it is quite a strong ink. It's always a very opaque ink, and often I have to dilute any acrylic ink that I get purely because it's normally quite thick, but also you have to be careful with acrylic ink because it dries to a plastic, which means it will dry with a sheen on it, so it will be shiny when light goes over the top of it. I wonder if I can get, don't know if I can get my light to do that quite here, but because I've got a window on the far side, so my light is always fractured across, but never mind. For a T, you want to start with your universal line of beauty. For the bottom of a T, it's best to leave that till last, to be honest, purely because anything too much on this left hand side and it will look like a J. So personally I do a, she says, there we go, I do a backwards contained oval into a loop and I join it together. From that point I can then have a look at the space I've got, and there's really only 2 options I think for the bottom of a T, because obviously in a normal T, so in a normal whatever T, it's going to be heavier on top than on the bottom. Even in a serifed font, it's still going to be much heavier on the top. Same deal here. Let me just clean that off really quickly. So with acrylic ink, it does dry very quick, but it can damage your nib. Like I said, it eats through the coatings on nibs really badly, so you do want to put it in a durable nib. I wouldn't put it in something like a Gillot or a Hunt, purely because the propensity for drying in between the tines and making the nib unusable is quite high with acrylic ink. So alrighty, so let's go in on a T. So you've got obviously your universal line of beauty right here. I'm going to shove that right there. Okay, so I've got my universal line of beauty. So I've obviously got my middle third being along the slant line. So that should be parallel right there. And then the top third of your universal line of beauty should be spent becoming gradually horizontal, pointing in that direction. Bottom third, conversely, should be spent becoming horizontal, going in the left direction. It's important to note here that this is not a flourishable area. You can flourish it. It's not, I mean, it's not illegal. But just for legibility, I would put my foot down and say no, that this is not a flourishable area. It's got to remain understated. Otherwise, it's going to look like a J or even an S if you haven't quite got it on the slant line. It's really, really easy to mess up a T. So if I put no flourish. So you can put a terminus dot. I've also seen it before where it can loop over a tiny bit, but that's the most I've ever seen on a T. So the bottom is very, very small. That's why I leave it to last, so that I know whatever nonsense I've done on the top, it just needs to be supported by the bottom. It doesn't need to be added to. So let's talk about the top, which would be great if it was in focus. There we go. So from the top, we've got the slant line right here. So you can see that however far to the right I have gone, to the apex of my swell is about as far as I've gone to the left. So I could theoretically curve that back around and have a totally even top section. I could have an infinity symbol if I carried on. So obviously I've gotten to this point, and then I've started my contained oval. Obviously contained oval in here. We've talked about contained ovals before. You can continue from this point. Let's see if I can fit that in there just, I think. Flourish. Here. If you should so want to. There is also, I'll go through in a second, but there is also a hierarchy here for overlapping bits, because obviously in a T, in letters like an S, like we saw last time, that is contained entirely to the left of the universal line of beauty. Sorry, I have a piece of plastic that is just crinkling away in the background. There we go. So in an S, everything is contained to the left of the universal line of beauty, but obviously in a T, we've got this protrusion to the right. That would mean that it would impact on taller letters that come after it, like an H. I don't think there's any other ones, but frequently we get an H, like in thank you cards. And I'll show what we need to do for that, because there is a hierarchy that you've got to consider. But effectively, you don't want this looking too busy. You also can make it much wider should you want to, for flourishing purposes, but I tend not to, because it does look massively unbalanced. So I tend not to flourish over here, just in the name of balance. But if you've got something that's really radically flourished, then that's a possibility. Your legibility box, it's quite difficult for a T because it's almost the entire letter. Your legibility box for a T, I keep saying this, I keep saying that I need a black pen. I've got a pencil, hold on, that'll do. There we go. So legibility box, I really need to get myself together with that, is effectively the whole of this area. You cannot cross over anything inside of this box, otherwise you're risking of losing your legibility. So if we curve this back under and went over, it's going to start to look like an F, so you cannot cross this universal line of beauty. You can bisect this should you need to, but I think realistically you need the same amount of space here and here underneath. So I'd sort of draw the line. That's not straight at all. I'd sort of draw the line somewhere here and just say, look, any other letters that we've got, they can't come into this area. I can put obviously my whatever word I've got in here, like if I've got the word the, I can put that in here. But I would not go into that area, purely because in general, and this is going to be quite hard to explain, in general, when you've got flourishing, however wide your O is gonna dictate the gaps between your flourishing if you are not bisecting. So if you've got parallel lines, for example, so I mean, where can I hide this? I'll put this right here. So if you have parallel lines, so say that that's a flourish that you've got, and then you've got a secondary flourish underneath, then your lines must be parallel with the height of an O. Just hit my camera, sorry for that. Yeah, so all the way along, I've got approximately the height of an O. That's it, that's the minimum amount of space, and it's good to stick to because it gives your writing the correct amount of room to breathe. So many times I've seen flourishes be stacked far too close to the lowercase, so to the minuscules, and it's looked compacted and it has looked squashed, which you never really want to do because you're going to lose the elegance of the script. Give it a bit of breathing room, let your letters stand by themselves. honestly, like, I had so much of a lack of confidence in my writing for a long time, and I know it's still not perfect, and I'm quite honest about it and quite open about it, but I think sometimes you don't realize, because you're so caught up in all of these rules and all these nitty-gritty things, like trying to make it look balanced and trying to make it seem effortless and playful and, you know, or regimented and formal, you know, whichever look you're going for. But sometimes it takes me months to look back at my old work and actually like it. Yeah, I think it takes a lot of time to build up that confidence, and I think realistically comparing yourself to these perfect things on social media is it can be damaging, like, because it is a discipline. This isn't just something you can pick up overnight. It's something that is built over a long time, so you need to be grafting and putting in the effort. All right, so if I continue on with putting in a word, I'll talk about the hierarchy here of structure. Ooh, just hit my camera, sorry. Right, so in here we obviously know that whatever angle this is, that is your entrance stroke, as close as I can get. Okay, so an H normally is looped. I'm just going to go for the word the, but because we have the extension of the T to the right, then that means that the H is going to have to drop down, and I'm going to keep it about an O's width away from the top. There we go. And I'll do my thing and completely run out of ink. Hold on. Just realised that I used the wrong ink also. There we go. So whatever we're doing here, it means that we're going to need to keep about an O's width away from everything. And I'll show you what I mean. There we go. We've been through it before, where I've gone through and shown you O widths around the words and stuff, but I think it's always really good to see, especially in a variety of words. I need to just mention ascenders. Am I still have, oh yeah, miles in frame. Ascenders. All right, so ascenders need to be dropped lower here. They are second in the hierarchy. The majuscule must take precedence. You can obviously, I mean, I've done it in pencil here, but you can see I could extend that if I wanted to, but it's just going to look too busy, I think. So personally, I'm not going to this time, but I can, if I want, extend that up, should I want to. So I think this is almost dry here. So you can see I've got O's in here. I'm trying not to get ink on my pen. I've got an O in here, an O in there, an O in there. That E is really wet. Okay. Yep, there it is. Okay, so you can see I've got O's all over the place, and they're roughly even. I'm not expecting anything like machine perfect here, as long as you're eyeballing it. Obviously, when we're reading something, it's got to read clearly and elegantly. And if, as a writer, you think that whatever you're doing, you need to bend the rules for in order to achieve that, then that is your priority. Okay, so I've got O's all the way through, which are about even, and I should have the same. I was going to explain it and didn't. There we go. It's because this is because I record early in the morning. So I've got the same here width-wise. I could actually bring that up a little tad more, but hesitant to. So I should have an O width or an O height around them. So I wouldn't really be bringing any flourishing So if I call that a, can't write on this angle, there we go, a flourish limit. Yeah, I wouldn't be bringing any flourishing closer to that letter than that. Yeah, so that's the width of my O around my words. Okay, I think that's about it for a T. I feel like I've done a lot of it just sort of in the corner, so apologies. If you have a shorter word, so no ascenders, so I mean I can do a quick example of it because I think we've got a little bit of, yeah, right. I try not to make my videos too long, but I try to make them as helpful as possible, so if I've got a little bit of time I can hoist some things in, can't I? What should we do? Okay, so if I don't even think I've got enough ink on there and I put the lid back on, how silly of me. There we go, lovely. So if I do this right here, okay, she says. Okay. Right. So if I've got the word 10, then I've got a lot of space right under here. Your priority is the O width all the way through, and you do not take that O width from the top of your letter. So what that means is, though this is the limit of your capital, it means that the O width comes from your universal line of beauty. Okay. And again, that would therefore mean that ascenders would be dropped lower. If you have descenders like a Y or whatever, then they should be non-obstructed. Oh, I could just put a Y on the end. That's such a happy accident, eh? Right. So I could put in, she says, there it is. So I could put in a descender right here. If I wanted to, I could extend that up if I've got a particularly busy word. So I would maybe just put a terminus dot here. I'm not really interested in flopping it over because my entrance stroke is only an O width away. So I'm not really interested in flopping that over. So my terminus dot is basically my only option. So for a Y, I could extend it up and we could do whatever you wanted over here. I'm not afraid to do that, purely because it can look unbalanced when you've got, if you're just writing one word, for example, so if you're doing wedding place cards and it's just a singular name, then it's worth balancing the word as an entire piece. So I have one descender right here. I could bring that up into the ascender line. I could swoop my descender very, very far left so it goes over the middle of the piece, and I could contain that within that area. If I wanted, I could flop it back over. Whatever, there's a few options. I could extend my N, whatever, but I would not extend your T ever. So maybe I can fit that. Where can I fit that? I can fit that somewhere here. Ooh, sneaky. Gotta be careful because my ink is still wet. So never drop T lower than baseline. Yeah, otherwise you are getting into J territory there. And then I've got Giny instead of Tiny, which is not good. Okay, I think that's about it for a T. Any questions or any weird combinations that you've got to do, just let me know and I will try and help the best as I can. Have a nice day.